For the love of games!
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Steven from pixelattack.net and welcome to our Pixel Peeks of Valkyria Chronicles. This is originally was a PlayStation 3 game released back in 2008, which just recently was ported to the PC. The game was made by Sega, which is kind of surprising that they would, release this as a PC port, but it is a fantastic game. It had great reviews on the PS3 and it's great to see this game here now. We're gonna jump in and I'm gonna show you just exactly what Valkyria Chronicles is, what it's all about, and all that good stuff. So Valkyria Chronicles is a turn-based tactical RPG, or a strategy RPG, however you want to call it, set in sort of this fictional World War I/II setting. It takes place in what looks like Europe, but the names are all different, and the nature of the conflict, the nuance of it is fairly different as well. But being a JRPG, there's a heavy emphasis on story and combat, but combat is probably the most important thing, and that's what I want to show you guys today. So we're going to jump in real quickly, and I'm just going to talk through the combat and play a few rounds of it, and then we'll go into more of the behind-the-scenes stuff. So, alright, we're going to get a quick briefing on what exactly is going down. So as a turn-based tactical RPG, the interesting twist with Valkyria Chronicles is a lot of these RPGs sort of have, the top-down isometric view, and you just sort of click and move units around. What's really interesting about Valkyria Chronicles is that each enemy each character that you basically take control over becomes a third-person shooter, which we'll see here in a few seconds. So here are victory and failure conditions. This stuff is very standard. This foundation of it is very much rooted in Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre. If you've played either of those games, there's lots of other ones. I mean, Fire Emblem is one, certainly. So the first thing you're going to want to do is position your units, just like any good old tactical RPG. So we see here, this is a list of everyone in my squad. And there are a lot of this, I'll go into more depth later, but Welkin is our main character. He's already on the map, so we're gonna throw Alicia down, like Ramona, Susie, Frisia. Now the interesting thing to note, and I'll kind of go into this a bit more later, you'll see characters have levels, they have HP, AP, which is basically how many actions they can take in a round, or the extent of which their actions they can do is, but they also have sort of like character traits here, and these character traits will affect them in combat in various ways, depending if they meet certain conditions. For example, Rosie has a desert allergy, so if Rosie is fighting in an area that is desert, that'll reduce her combat efficiency, but she's a big sister, so if she's near other characters who I think are the same class as her, she'll sort of, get a boost to attack because she wants to protect them. And all of these characters have these characters, it's also worth noting, are all fully voice acted. They all have their own personalities. Like there's, it's like any good tactical RPG. It has a huge cast of characters, and you kind of pick ones that you get emotionally attached to, which makes, potentially losing them in combat so much worse. So I've got several scouts on the field. Scouts are like your sort of fast-moving units. They're really good at, getting into action, but they're not exactly the strongest. We'll get Rosie. These are our shock troopers. These guys really, bringing home the firepower. I know for a fact that this map doesn't have any lancers, but what the heck, let's put one in anyways. And then there's snipers and engineers. So lancers are basically your anti-armor. And then you got engineers, which are your buffers. They, they can drop ammo, they can repair tanks, things like that. And then snipers. I'm gonna use a sniper because this map that we're doing is the first one. It's very easy. I don't need to show you guys something, extremely tactical, but it'll give you a gist of how combat works. So once that's done, we'll back out of here and we will deploy.
Now, let's begin the operation. I'm confident victory is within reach.
Perfect. So like I said, this is a skirmish. It's not tied to the main story anyway.
Imperials back out of Gallia. Squad 7, move out.
Awesome. they're just sort of these side battles that you can do for extra experience and things like that. This one is easily the most basic. So once the battle begins, you have your player phase. So like I said, it's turn-based. You'll basically take turns moving and attacking, and then once you run out of CP, then your enemy will do the same. So you'll see here we have these little badges at the top of the screen. That's your CP, and using units costs CP. You can use the same unit multiple times. Each time it'll cost CP, and that unit will be less effective. So why don't we start out with one of our scouts? Actually, I'm going to use Cesare here. So this is what I was talking about. Once you select your unit, it goes into third person. And this is basically like a shooter now. I can move around, I have direct control over that character. And now he's a sniper, he doesn't have a lot of movement, so I don't want to move him too much. And being a sniper, I can also zoom in on my enemies and see things from, you know, a much greater distance. I also do a ton of damage if I can score some headshots. Now, the shot placement is somewhat random. If it's inside this circle, you can see I have a much better chance of hitting him, but the headshot does much more damage, as you can see the to kill up there at the top. And I only have one shot this turn, so I want to try and make it count. Oh, and I missed. Bummer. Alright, so I can crouch behind sandbags. That reduces the efficiency of headshots, so you always want to make sure you're crouched if possible. That sucks that I missed that. I'm a bit choked. Let's do Alicia. She's a pretty good shot. Alright. To kill, 15. Oh man, these characters are not hitting the target. All right, I know what I'm gonna do. So Welkin is my main character, and this is all sort of explained in the story. There is, you know, it doesn't really look like it because I jumped right into combat, but there is a heavy emphasis on story. Welkin is the son of a general who is famous from sort of the first Europan War, which is kind of the European continent. Anyways, so he drives a tank. He drives his dad's tank, which you'll find out very quickly in the story. There, I'm just gonna go all out and just blow that guy to pieces. What I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna get my tank up here. You can see this meter in the bottom. That's my action meter. You know, every time I move, it goes down. So I only have one shot around. You basically get one movement, or that your full bar's worth of movement, and then one attack phase per round. And after that's over, you are out of luck. So I'm gonna jump back into Alicia's shoes. I'm gonna sprint for cover. Now you can see when I move out in the open like that, the enemies will take shots at me in between rounds. Those are sort of like attacks of opportunity. All right, not bad. She's taking some damage, but she'll recover at the end of our turn anyway, so it's not a big deal. Let's pick someone else. Let's get one of my shock troopers. Vice, this guy's super cool. Shock troopers have much less range. They can't move nearly as far. But they do a lot of damage. They're great up close. Now, you saw I broke one of the enemy's badges. When you kill sort of a commanding unit, the enemy... Oh no, see? Now I'm out of movement. I'm stuck out in the open here, and Vice is taking damage from that guy. I'm gonna end the current action as quickly as possible to prevent Vice from taking any more pot shots from that dude. Let's move up another one of my scouts, Susie.
I've located the enemy.
So, I mean, you can hear, they each have their own callouts and things like that. It's fantastic. The amount of characterization that exists in this game is just great. Oh, Susie, you let me down. Oh man, Susie. Okay, well, this is perfect, actually. If I wasn't recording, I wouldn't have been so brazen, but I was. So now that Susie is out of commission, basically, there is permadeath in this game. If one of the enemies was to get to her before I could, she would die. They would basically perform an execution on her. Luckily, Alicia is right there.
Medic!
And she's gonna call the medic.
Sit tight. Help's almost there. You'll be okay. Don't worry about a thing.
And Susie's been safely evacuated. So I don't have to
Beat the smell of fresh soil.
worry about that at all anymore. Man, that guy is just demolishing my squad. And that's it. That's gonna be my turn over. I'm not doing very well, I admit. And this is like one of the easier ones, certainly. But I broke one of their badges, that's okay. So he's gonna take a bunch of pot shots at Vice. Vice will obviously finish him off. Yep, there we go. Let's see what else the enemy does. So just like the enemy gets attacks of opportunity, we also get attacks of opportunity when they're moving out in the open, which you can see right there. My tank went and finished him off very quickly. Tanks are very powerful in this game. The enemy does have tanks. There's a Lancer. Did he miss that shot? It looks like he did. That's upsetting. There we go. I mean, this map very easily without sort of enemy armor. And the enemy does get tanks, sometimes more than one. They'll get plenty of tanks. You know, you can't exactly rush, but in this instance, I very much am capable of rushing. So my tank has a few different options here. I have a mortar and I have a machine gun. These enemy Lancers are quite resistant to explosive damage. I don't think it's going to do much, but what I am going to do is I'm going to take this guy out. Actually, you know what, if I just... I think the mortar would finish him off in one shot. Yep. Now some things like the mortar only have a certain amount of ammo. You regenerate 1 ammo per turn, same with like Lancers and stuff like that. But if you use your character multiple times in one of your turns, like if I were to use this tank several times, you know, I wouldn't have access to the mortar until after my whole turn was over and the enemy had gone, and then I'd respawn more ammo. So I'm not gonna use Alicia since she's kind of damaged. I'm gonna let her sort of hang back there, and you know, she'll regenerate some health over time slowly. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna move her way up here. And that doesn't do as much as I expected it would. I was kind of hoping for like just to finish that guy off, but I guess not. Let's end the current action. I know, let's give Cesare another shot. He let me down the first time, but maybe this time he can get a good scope on him. All right, yeah, 3 shots. So you kind of, for these, you really want to, you know, the headshots are definitely a risk, but I think this time I'll just aim for the body. Since he's crouched down anyways, headshots don't do damage, so it's better to just aim for the body and you know, hope for body shots. And I'm not gonna make a comment about body shots. All right. So combat is really fantastic. I mean, as someone who did not get a chance to play this game on the PS3, I am so surprised at how great this game is. I am a big fan of Ogre Battle though. And not necessarily Tactics Ogre, but definitely Ogre Battle. Oh, yeah, okay, good. He's gonna fall in the river. And being able to play one of these tactical RPGs is like a dream come true for me. It has been so long since I've played one, and one that is really good, and this one is. It does not take long for the missions to really sort of step it up in difficulty in a lot of respects. Certainly only took me, you know, a couple of missions before I started kind of sweating at some of the mission objectives. The missions so far seem like just have awesome variation to them. I wonder what's better for shooting this guy to pieces. There we go. Definitely took him out. And that's another one of the enemy badges broken. Now the same can happen to me. I have certain characters that are sort of like more special than others. Rosie's one of them, Alicia's one of them. They're characters that have more of a story emphasis. If they fall in combat and are either healed by the medic or killed, then I lose that turn. Now it's worth noting that there is permadeath for non-integral story characters, but this isn't, you know, like a true tactical RPG where, you know, your super integral story character can die and be gone for good. That's happened a lot in more classic ones. That's not really the case with this one. I don't think it matters all that much. Sure, you know, it kind of lessens the impact somewhat, that you can't lose, you know, a character who is, you know, super important to the story, but it also allows them to do things with the storytelling that you might not be able to do otherwise, because you can always rely on those characters being alive. And I know that's kind of more with older tactical RPGs like Ogre Battle and such. I'm just gonna blow this guy to high heaven. And that should win us the round, I believe. No. I can't believe there's someone still alive. I thought I had... Oh, right. Okay, so what you have to do...
I'm ready to go.
The victory condition for this one isn't even killing all the enemies. The victory condition is capturing the enemy's base. Now that I've killed them all, I can run over the base. And I'm gonna have to use 2 turns to do that. Looks like, oh no, there we go. Occupied the enemy camp, operation complete. This is a very, very light sort of glance at what the game has to offer. The combat is much more technical in the story. The conditions will differ. There are usually conditions that require you to complete your objectives within a certain time frame as well, so you can't just sort of turtle up in your base or exploit the enemy AI, which is really, really smart. I'm sure the skirmishes get much more difficult. Unfortunately, I haven't unlocked any more yet because I've only played a couple of hours. So let's go back to chapter select. So the story, or the kind of the game, is laid out as if it's you're reading it in a book, and it makes that impression very early on. There is a narrator to the story. She sort of is talking about how Welkin, our main character, will become a war hero, and this is sort of his story. And so the whole game is sort of wrapped up in this context of being in a book, which you can see here in this sort of book mode. So I can use the menu and I can go through chapter select. I want to show you guys a cutscene very quickly. Let me see if I can think of one that is just very simple. Because the graphics in this game are gorgeous. I mean, they are JRPG, so they were sort of made to look as if they were drawn, but in the cutscenes especially... Oh, you know what? This isn't a good one to do. I'm sorry. The windmill tower. Some of the cutscenes are just talking heads cutscenes, which are fine. They do a pretty good job of progressing the story. This is one that is actually, like a real scripted animated cutscene. So you can see here, there's sort of this border. The whole thing is sort of wrapped up in this art style. Like, these are the pictures in the book you are reading. And it's really beautiful. I mean, for a PlayStation 3 game, I mean, it really reminds me of almost Ni no Kuni, where it was drawn to almost look like each scene could just be, hand drawn. And this one doesn't do it maybe as well as Ni no Kuni did in some respects, but I really love it.
So Welkin, I'm curious. Are you gonna join the army like your father?
The main story so far, from what I've experienced, is also just really fantastic. One of the things I really enjoy about it, and I don't want to get too into it just because, the stories are so important in these games, and I would hate to, risk spoiling something for anyone. But one thing I will say is, for a game that is all about war, but then also portrays war in sort of the kind of cutesy aesthetic of anime, this one does a really good job with the characterization. It feels, like it doesn't necessarily shy away from the material. This isn't sort of like, I don't know, super cutesy take on war. I mean, it's a fairly honest look at it, and I love the way the characters are, and they all are very diverse and stuff like that. So we've talked about the story, I've showed you the combat. Let's show you what headquarters is. So when you're not fighting, when you're not watching cutscenes, what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna be in this area, and this is sort of the behind the scenes aspect of the game. Has anyone fallen in battle? I don't think anyone's died.
Respects. Actually, no, sir.
Okay, good.
Then might.
All right, I'm just gonna quickly, for a second there, I was like, man, did someone die and I didn't realize it? I'm just gonna blaze through this cutscene. So there's, a lot of these talking head cutscenes, and there's lots of interactions with characters who are sort of like, Okay. No. I think we can probably, hopefully I can just come back and make that decision. But anyways, so squad barracks. Squad barracks is where you basically can, look over your squad. Now, the interesting thing about units is, how do I do this exactly? This is where you can even change your unit's equipment. So if you want them to use different types of guns, you can do that. Units will usually also carry grenades and something called regnade, which is sort of like first aid. Yes, exit the squad 7 barracks. The command room, so that's where you can just check your unit. The command room is where you can actually go and...
Oh, and there have been some new recruits.
Perfect, new recruits. This is where you go. So your squad only holds 20 people. Now, you saw in combat, like I think I only had 9 in that combat scenario. It's common to have to choose from that 20 and narrow it down even further, but there's even a greater pool that you can pull from, and this is sort of my greater combat pool. So you'll want to go here and occasionally check on these characters. The great thing about this game is that levels are unified across classes. So if your scouts are level 4, all of your scouts are level 4. You'll never have to worry about leveling up older scouts that you don't use as often. And you'll want to substitute characters in as you get new recruits. The other interesting thing to notice is that characters have likes. Those are other soldiers in your army. And sometimes, fighting along someone they like will boost their statistics. So their stats, yeah, basically. So there's just a lot of depth to this game. There's a lot of strategy here. Let's see what else we got. The training field, that's basically where you can train units to improve their combat capabilities. So this is where you go to spend experience that you have gathered. There you go. So, let's just go and we'll level up my shock troopers. So once you level them up to max, you just assign the EXP.
You're better than this.
And that guy will give you some little silly things, and they'll level up. Now, every once in a while,
Good work, Matt.
it didn't happen this time. Let's maybe see if it happens with the Lancers. Every once in a while, when you level up, you'll get some extra potential that you unlock, and the game will let you know when that happens.
Good work, Matt. Looks like that
There we go.
beat a new potential out of the
Just extra little random boosts. And also leveling up will sometimes unlock commands, which I didn't touch on, and I should have. Commands are just things that you can spend CP on that sometimes affect a single unit or your entire squad. They're basically just buffs that you can use that basically it's sort of like special maneuvers that Welkin does. So the R&D facility is where you can go, and this is where you can upgrade not only your weapons, but also Welkin's tank. So if you go to outfit tanks, change parts, you can see here we have a few parts that have been put on the tank. Now different parts will have different sizes. These ones are all 1x1 squares. Sometimes you'll get much more important parts that are 2x4 or I guess 4 is too many. Oh yeah, you can do 2x4 or 2x2. And you'll have to choose which ones you want to select because you obviously have a limited amount of space. It's sort of reminiscent of like Resident Evil 4's inventory, where you're trying to make everything fit. You're playing Tetris almost, and you can also develop new weapons, upgrade armor, your tank's armor. That's what you spend your other points, your other currency. You can see up in the corner there.
Come back again soon, bro. I mean it, man.
This game is full of characters. They're all fantastic. I love them all. The voice acting is really good in this game. And I'm not someone who particularly enjoys like anime. I do tend to enjoy a lot of JRPGs, but this one especially just really stands out. And there's a few other things here. So there's the war cemetery where you can go to visit people who have passed away. And obviously that guy wanted to teach me something. And this is where you can go read the writing on the wall, which I think is a magazine. That's basically it. That's the game in a nutshell. I guess I could show off one more thing. So then there's also, there's tabs for personnel. So these are all the characters in the game so far that I have, and they all have their little biographies, and you can rotate their models and check them out and stuff like that. Some characters like Welkin and stuff, our main character. You can also check out like his alternate uniform. So this is his wartime uniform, and I can change his outfit to his peacetime uniform. Things like that. There's also I mean, this is crazy, but there's, you know, there's books for the different type of weaponry if you want to see the different guns and read bios on them. And then also a glossary of terms, which, you know, goes into more of the conflict and the cultures surrounding the conflict. Like, there's just a ton here. This is a fantastic game. You know, I try not to necessarily always weigh in this heavily, but for $20, this port is fantastic. It runs at 60 frames per second. There's resolution options. It's missing a borderless window option, which is kind of disappointing for those of you on multi-monitor setups. But overall, I mean, compared to, you know, Final Fantasy 13, which really Square Enix ported to the PC and was just not a good port. It had, you know, maximum 720p. It was stuck at 30 frames per second. Like, that's just kind of garbage. This is a fantastic port. This is a great game. If you are a fan of RPGs, if you're a fan of you know, tactical style games, this is one that I highly recommend. I am just loving it so far. That's basically it. That's all I wanted to say. I hope you enjoy this game, guys. Be sure to check it out. Support this. We need to, you know, show companies that these types of games have a market on PC, which I think people traditionally don't always think of. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play a strategy RPG, a strategy JRPG on PC. You know, that typically hasn't always been the case. The developers think that that's a good idea, putting those on PC, but it is. So buy this game. It's fantastic. It's more than worth your time. It's a great game. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Steven. Be sure to check us out at pixelattack.net for more awesome videos and cool articles and all sorts of great stuff. And add us on Twitter at pixelattack. We would love to hear from you. So we will see you guys next time. Have a great day.